Hi everyone, this is James from Joe Repros, and this will be the beginning of our series on mold making and resin casting. We will be focusing on G.I. Joe, but the techniques featured in this series can be applied to anything you want to reproduce. A quick warning before we start, this is both expensive and can be very frustrating. However, you will see by the end of the series why it is so vitally important to use the proper equipment and the results you can achieve with it. With that out of the way, let's begin. Today we'll be looking at the vacuum chamber, its uses, and why I use one, and so should you, to get the most out of your casting. First, let's take a look at its construction and break down the various parts on it and talk about their part to play. First, you can see the base. It's made out of a sturdy metal container. I will also note that I have seen it made out of a sturdy PVC, but it is very, very important to make it out of a strong material. Any less and it will shatter when it reaches vacuum. The size of the container is an important factor when making or buying a vacuum chamber. The bigger it is, the longer it will take to achieve vacuum, which may rule out shorter pot life resins for vacuuming if it takes too long. The capacity of the vacuum pump will also play a role in how long it takes to degas the silicone or resin, but we will take a look at that in the next video. Next, we take a look at the lid. As you can see, it's made of a thick, see-through perspex to both prevent shattering and to be able to see when vacuuming is complete. You can use a metal lid if you want, but you won't be able to keep an eye on what you're degassing, which may cause it to overflow. Next up is what I call the stalk. It comprises of the air filter, the gauge, the air levers, and the air hose. Let's start with a filter. Obviously, you're dealing with air, you want a good filter. But it's important to have this filter there to ensure contamination doesn't go back up and into your vacuum pump if you have an accident, accidentally ruining your expensive investments. The levers are important for controlling airflow. You want the one next to the filter here in the closed position, and the other one connecting to the air hose open, so the air goes into the vacuum chamber and starts to vacuum. If you have this open, it's just going to go into the air filter and out, and you're not going to get anything done. The final part is probably the most vital part of the vacuum chamber, the gauge. It measures in HG, or inches of mercury. A gauge will have a numbers 0 to 30. And to achieve a proper vacuum, you will need to achieve as close to 30 as possible, but at least 29. Unfortunately, for some people who live too high above sea level, you will never achieve full vacuum, no matter the equipment you purchase. As the vacuum grows, you will see the numbers climb and slow down around here, and hopefully stabilize around 29 to 30. Now that the physical breakdown is out of the way, let's talk about why you need a vacuum pump and chamber for mold making and pressure casting, and why you can't just pressure cast a non-vacuum mold. Vacuuming silicone and resin is very important because it pulls the bubbles out of the material as opposed to just shrinking them like pressurizing does. This does a twofold job of both removing air from heavy, dense silicone rubber and resin, while also filling voids that would be left by air bubbles. This will be demonstrated in our actually making of videos. This video is just going through the vacuum chamber itself, and future ones will expand more. Now, imagine you don't use a vacuum chamber to degas your silicone mold. It's likely going to be full of air bubbles, right? Well, when you pressurize a mold that has bubbles, they pop out like pimples, leaving little circles over everything, and that mold is now ruined. You wouldn't want a nice cast ruined forever, would you? Silicone is very expensive. Now, when combining vacuuming and pressurizing is where the magic happens. You pull out all the bubbles with the vacuum, then pressurize anything left into a microscopic size. Here at Joe Repros, that's how we get our parts looking so sharp and nice. Well, that's it for this episode. Stay tuned for our next episode when we go over vacuum pumps and which one is right for the job. Take care and cast on.